So my hereditary or traditional name is what I'm wearing around my neck. So in the Tsimshian language, when the eagle lands on the tree, it kind of announces itself. So what the eagle is doing in our language, ganatsk. So that's my hereditary name from the village of Lachlan or Kitkatla out of Prince Rupert. And yeah, I've dedicated my life to our people in economic development and governance. Most importantly, First Nations are tired of getting little 5%, 10% equity positions or revenue sharing positions. Those years are long gone. It's time for ownership. So the key for us with Northern Nations Cooperative has been, how do we generate major projects and the First Nations own 100% to begin with? Obviously we need to raise financing. So this Green Link 1 project, probably $6 to $7 billion, right? Well, we got to go raise that money. So obviously the partners we bring in are going to start taking an equity position, but the key is the First Nations are going to own the major equity position. I've always said the true path to self-sufficiency for our people is through economic development. But economic development, that does the separation of church and state. So politicians, stick to the politics, ensure business people are running your business for you. So that's what it's about. For the majority of our communities, there's 633 odd First Nation communities in Canada. There's 58 First Nations, but that many communities. And I would venture to say that 75% of them doesn't know what that means, because that's what we've lived our whole life. So how do we survive? We survive by government handouts, and those days are over. As I said, it's time to say, take control ourselves, and we can. Especially, how many court cases did it take to get us where we are today? With the First Nations in particular in BC, hold the trump card, and pardon me for using that name, but hold a trump card because of no treaties. There are modern day treaties being signed, but we need to take advantage of that. So when you're talking to industry, when you're talking to corporate Canada, they know major projects aren't going ahead unless you have First Nations buy-in or partner with the First Nation. I mean, look what happened to the Enbridge pipeline, right? So it's crucially important to ensure that the First Nations aren't just at the table, they're in control of the table. Well, I believe that's what Northern Nations Cooperative is doing, right? Our goal, to bring all 1.8 million Indigenous people in Canada together under this Northern Nations Cooperative, for-profit cooperative. So I believe that is the path for us. Is it hard getting out there and convincing them? Sure it is, because who are you is the big question, and what is it going to cost us? The key for us is $20 to have a lifetime membership. You know, for people in the city, a couple of trips to Starbucks, right? Up here, maybe a lunch, right? So that's for your whole life. And then you reap the rewards of all the major projects from coast to coast to coast. This is my first participation, and it's what, the 7th annual? This is fantastic. And I think most importantly, in bringing indeed First Nations with ideas, problems, how do we move ahead with our economic development plans or projects, come together and everybody shares where they are, how they got there. But most importantly, we want to hear the success stories, how you got there, and the sharing of them. And I think more and more today you're finding First Nations, rather than this is mine, leave me alone, right? They realize that open and share, we all benefit. I don't think there's anything really to add other than, you know, it is important. We are at that point where I said, instead of being at the table, being in control of the table now. And not just in control for the First Nations or Indigenous people, because when we are successful, the town we're next to is successful, right? Then Canada is successful. So that's key, is how do we work together for the benefit of all? And I believe that's one thing I can see that N2N is assisting in doing.